Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Rogue Wave podcast, the frequency for all things pop culture and the disruptors behind it. We talk comics, movies, TV, and pop culture with the rogues who create it every Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern, right here on Facebook.com/We Are Rogue Matter, YouTube.com/Rogue Matter, Twitch.tv/We Are Rogue Matter, and Twitter.com/Rogue_Matter. We take this wonderfully produced video and turn it into the greatest podcast known to man, the Rogue Wave podcast. I'm your host, Michael Dolce, as always, joined by my cohort in crime, Mr. Hassan Godwin. How you doing, sir?
Everything's fine.
Everything is fine. Well, it's even better than fine because I want to welcome our special guest today. We have the lovely and talented Sarah Booth from the hit Amazon Prime show Three Pines. Sarah, how you doing?
I'm great. How are you guys?
We are doing great, and we are excited to have you on. Now, we talked a little bit pre-show about how Three Pines, for me personally, I'm enjoying it so much. It's so refreshingly different than the stuff that we normally cover. The Star Wars stuff, the Marvel stuff, things of that ilk. And it's great. It's a really, really great show, and I love your character in it. I mean, I'm genuinely excited for everything that's happening. Tell us about your experience and the reception you're getting.
Of course. So when I originally got the audition breakdown, I saw who was behind this project, which is the creators of the Crown, and I was like, thanks, guys, but pretty sure you're going to go with like a name actor or someone that has a little bit more weight behind them. And I had been auditioning for the casting director for many, many years. So
Okay.
I was just had this like, oh, thank you so much for even thinking of me. I'm just going to throw spaghetti at the wall and like go big and just do an audition that makes me feel happy and playful. So that's what I did. And I kind of forgot about it. And about a month later, my agent called me and she said, remember that Three Pines audition? They really loved you, but they think like it was way too big. Like, take it down, just retape, but give them like the grounded version. I was like, sure. Did that. Was able to meet the producer and the director via Zoom a couple weeks later, and then we did a work session together and found out I got the part a few days after that.
How is it auditioning over Zoom? I got to imagine it's frustrating.
It's a whole new world is what it is. It's a whole medium that you have to get used to. But usually the first rounds are done by self-tape now. Mm-hmm. So I just have a ring light and my cell phone, and I just tape myself at home and then send it into casting, which I really like because you can basically be anywhere and do your job. So you don't have to be in LA. You don't have to be in New York.
Yeah.
So I think it's giving everyone a little bit more quality of life to,
Oh, absolutely.
In a very expensive city.
Absolutely. That makes a lot of sense. Is it difficult gauging reaction? Like, how is it being in the room though, versus doing, I had a friend do it like a video interview, and he's like, it was the strangest thing ever because I couldn't gauge whether or not like what we were doing. Like, sometimes you feed off of what the other people are seeing, but was it dramatically different for you?
For me, I actually enjoy it better because I feel like it's difficult to go in and perform a character and also do a job interview at the same time.
Yeah.
So for me, I kind of like it because I don't have to drive there. I just leave my work there. I turn my computer off and walk away. But yes, there is something about being in the same room with people where you can, if you really get along, you'll just feel that. And we lose that in the Zoom room for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Three Pines, it's starring Alfred Molina. You play the small town police officer who's assigned to work on a murder case that Alfred Molina is brought in as a detective to help solve. And it's funny too because it has kind of like a Fargo vibe to it in my mind. Like I'm watching this and I'm getting that vibe a lot. But I remember the lead character Cece, who is at the crux of the mystery itself. She's the victim. I remember like. It was such a well done pilot in the sense that, when she was murdered, and you don't know who did it, obviously, it just, I was like, man, I'm glad they did a great job of setting up like a villain. They set up this villainous mystery, and it was, I don't know. I thought it was really, really well presented, so that now you do have all of these potential who done it, the actual, the actual murderers could be anybody in the town. And I
Yeah.
thought that was super unique. Now, reading the script, was that your reaction, or did you have a different reaction reading the initial script?
Well, I actually read the books as well as the script. So when I auditioned for the character, I, did my research and saw that the character in the books is quite different than the character that they wanted to create for the series. So I
Mm-hmm.
had a lot more liberty to play around with that, which was fun.
That's
And
cool.
in the books, there's just so much detail. So I really was able to, dive in and feel that hatred for Cece. And what's really fun is that it's true. By the end of that first episode, you're kind of like, what if it was all of them? Because
Right.
she was just a witch.
Yeah.
So a lot
Yeah.
of people texted me when she got barbecued,
Yeah.
and they were like, "Oh my gosh, I was so looking forward to her dying."
I didn't want to say it. I didn't want to say it because I didn't want to sound like a bad person. But I'm like, man, that felt good. It felt good to see her go in
Yeah,
that sense, because they do such a great job of setting that up. It's amazing.
yeah, they really
Um,
do.
yeah, and it is a
Just
spoiler, but it's the first episode, so
Yeah.
you'll
Well,
you'll
what's
get
fun is that you'll get a murder every week. So there's 4 books in the first season.
Yeah.
And each book is 2 episodes. So you get a weekly whodunit, but then also the overarching storyline that concerns the missing and murdered Indigenous women.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
I thought, I mean, in terms of structure, I mean, it's funny too. Sometimes you can just watch a show and you're like, wow. I mean, it's amazing that like you watch some shows and you're like, I don't know how much planning they did for this, but this show is just so finely crafted. It's just, like I said, very, very refreshing. Like you just know it's going to be quality every week. You're not getting, there's no gimmicks in this. I feel like it's just solid storytelling and well crafted.
Yeah. And I was hired, and about 2 weeks later, I found out who was playing Armand Gamache, and I was like, oh, like everything just made sense. And I was like, oh,
Yeah.
this is going to be big. Like,
Yeah.
Alfred, that's huge. Yeah.
Yeah. Talk to us about that. I wanted to know, like, what's it like sharing screen time with him and working with him? He's a tremendous actor. He's had such a great career.
Yeah, he's had an incredible career. And just, the first thing that my husband showed me when he got cast was like, he's like, Indiana Jones. And I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't even realize that was him.
You throw me the idol, I'll throw you the whip.
Yes, he's just had so many iconic roles that were also, like one scene, Boogie
Yeah.
Nights. And I just think he makes such good choices and bold choices that, he just stands out as an actor. And he's also an incredibly funny human being.
That's
Kept us
great.
laughing between takes. He has just great humor, and he was trained in the theater, so he very much treated our ensemble cast, which is big, as like a theater group. We were just, there's no hierarchy, there's no ego. He was so generous with his time and his thoughts, and run lines before scenes. If you did something in the scene that he liked, he'd come up to you after and be like, oh, that was fantastic. Like, he's just such a nice human being, and also set the tone on our set that there was no issues during the shoot, which was just wonderful.
Talk to us about your career in general. How did you get started? How did you get to be where you are? What was your rogue journey?
Sure. So when I was in high school, I was in a small, tiny like farm town, which is actually about an hour from where we shoot the series. And I didn't think, acting was ever a profession or something that I could do in my life. And in my last 2 years of high school, they started an arts program, and I just got hooked. I then auditioned for theater school, did 3 years of theater school, and got out into the world and just started auditioning, did a couple French series, and then moved to Toronto, did some stuff there, moved to LA, did some big gigs there, which actually really changed my career when I came back to Canada, because I did Law and Order and American Horror Story. So yeah, big shows. And when I got back to Canada during the pandemic, it just elevated my resume, and I just started working nonstop when I came back.
That's amazing. I mean, what was the biggest struggle you had at any point?
I think the biggest struggle for me was finding good representation, because when I would receive auditions, I would usually, get good feedback, get a call back or some interest or something like that. But especially when you're in Los Angeles, you're working 5 different jobs, you can't even get an
Yeah.
agent or a manager, and you're just like, what am I doing with my life? So that was definitely, it was hard, being
Yeah.
in Los Angeles. But I think that I have, a pretty good work ethic and just kept on pounding the pavement. And one of my favorite jobs that I had in Los Angeles was doing the live stunt show at Universal Studios.
Okay.
So like an unabridged version of the movie Waterworld, but just full on stunts.
Okay.
So, driving boat, driving through fire, ziplining, beating people up. So fun. So I did that job for about 3.5 years when I was in Los Angeles, and just met so many people. We were performing in front of like 3,000 people 5 times a day. So that was probably like my favorite side job that was really more involved in the in the industry.
So I find sometimes, Hassan and I are both comic book creators and artists. Sometimes I fight, over the years, I fought so hard to get over the mountain, right? To get the recognition or to get the job or whatever the case is, that sometimes I end up with no energy, right? I'm like, I used all my energy to get where I'm going. And now it's like, oh man, now I got to deliver again. Do you ever feel that pressure? Is that pressure off now because you have these high profile roles that you're able to kind of really just, all you have to do is focus on the work itself?
I don't think I'm at that level yet.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely think that this will put me on the map somewhere, which is great.
Yeah.
And what I think is really exciting is that people are going to discover me through this role, which is pretty comedic, but then they'll go and, look at the rest of the body of my work, which is very dramatic.
Okay.
Pretty much all of it is dramatic. So I think that'll be really interesting to see where my career goes after this, if it's going to go more towards dramatic or comedic, or I would like to keep both, obviously, because, when you get pigeonholed as an actor, it's, it's nice to work, but after a while you're like, okay, can I just like do something else, please? But I definitely feel like I will have some really great opportunities coming my way in the next little bit, because the show, has wheels and it's hot right now. So I think I just have to make smart choices right now and see where that leads.
More mountain climbing for you.
Yeah, it's just like a different mountain,
Yeah. No, you got to the top and then you look up. Oh, there it is. You guys still got to go. Still going. It's funny you mentioned the comedy versus drama, because every time you're on screen, it is kind of like I smile. I legitimately smile, not just because I knew we were going to interview, but also because I'm kind of like, like your character brings this almost this warmth to every scene she's in, and this, she's very genuine and she's just very upbeat and optimistic. So even when, she's either sitting there like, well, why would we even be here? Like she's, when she's questioning Alfred Molina in the first episode, like, why are you even here? Because she was electrocuted. Like it just every time you're on screen, I feel like you bring like an air of just positivity. So I feel like comedy seems to work with you. Do you enjoy it? Do you like it more than drama, or is there like a different bucket that you would that you prefer of the two?
I think comedy scares me more because it's a lot harder to pull off. So when we started doing this series, I was really lucky that I had Sam Donovan, who, has directed The Crown and is the main director on her. He was like, I felt so comfortable with him, and I never felt like, oh, if I do something like that doesn't work, I'll feel ashamed or whatever. Right? I never had that feeling on set. So I would just try anything. And like sometimes he would come up to me and be like, no. And I'd be like, okay, great.
That was nice, but don't do that ever again.
Exactly. He's like, that's not her. I'm like, okay. But the fact that I had that liberty, I think we found so many cool moments.
Yeah.
I was just constantly every take, like, okay, what like, what are my senses? What can I touch? What can I smell? What can I, she's a little bit like has puppy energy to her.
Yeah.
So
that's a very good way to describe it.
Yeah. She wants to please people. She's always like sniffing something out. She's just like, she loves food. She's food motivated. But I think because I was so spoiled in this situation, I feel like if I get cast in my next role and it's comedy, I'm going to be nervous because I won't have like my security blanket of Sam, you know? So I definitely want to do more comedy because I feel like it's very natural to me. It's very close to who I am as a human, but I also love doing drama.
Okay.
I'm just intrigued because you said you had to dial it down. I can't imagine that character dialed up any more than she already is. So
I know. Well, you know what I think I'm gonna do? I think I have my audition saved from when I did it. So I think I'm gonna dig them up and see how insane that first audition was.
You should definitely post that. No question. I think that'd be
especially as the show gets bigger and bigger. That's gonna be quite amazing.
Well, I think it just really encourages actors. Like, you know, we get scared, especially when it's a series regular. You're like, okay, I have to it's television. I have to downplay everything because, you know, I'm on screen a lot and, you know, nobody, it's just like, they tend to be more like, throw it away. And with her, because I didn't think I would get it, I was literally like, fuck it. No, I was just like, Andrea, who's the casting director, I'm like, she's gonna love this. So I just did it for her, really. Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. So you mentioned the Law and Order, your appearance, but you're also in Star Trek Discovery.
Yes.
Now, that's more of our world, right? The Star Trek world and universe and things like that. What was it like entering that and being, you know, involved in more of a pop culture-y kind of show?
Yeah, it was, first of all, so exciting because living in Toronto, we have a couple Star Trek shows here. So we audition for them quite frequently.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's tough to get a role on those shows because it's just such a high profile show.
Sure.
And there, you know, so many actors are willing to just come do you know, a cameo. So
right.
I had auditioned many, many times, and this was the last day before we moved away from Los Angeles, and our apartment was packed up, and I was like, oh my gosh, I have an audition for Star Trek. I have to do it before we leave. And it was just like one of those things where it's like, let's just get it done and move on. And by the time we got back to Canada, I heard that they were interested. And I was like, finally, because, you know, we've auditioned so many times. And just being part of that show and going to that set was incredible. Like the 270 degree stage that they used on the Mandalorian. They used the oh my gosh, my husband.
The volume. They call it the volume, right?
Thank you. The volume was awesome to work with because, I mean, using your imagination is super fun, but when you're able to, you know, everyone who's in the scene is seeing the same thing, you know, that just kind of elevates the whole experience. And there was so much practical props, and it felt like theater and film were mixed together. It was awesome. Siniqua, oh my God, she is just fantastic. She was breastfeeding and she's the number one on the show, and in between scenes she's like, do you guys want to play charades? And I was like, who are you? This is amazing. She's just really sets the tone for that set too, and I feel like that set is so inclusive, and it was fantastic. It was a lot of fun.
That's amazing. And, you know, you can make an entire career now. You can appear at any convention you want to.
Yes, I went to a convention shortly after the episode played, and two guys were just walking by my booth, and they're like, you played Luda on episode, I don't even know the episode, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I did. I was like, whoa. Yeah.
I'm telling you, it's a good. I mean, look, we're very happy for you. Three Pines is very successful, so I think you're going to be launched into something big. But if it hadn't happened, you literally could make an entire career just going to conventions now and being Luda
all by
Star
itself. I've seen it done.
Autographs like $150. You get it. It would be done. You know, you can make a living. It's harder life. It's harder life. I think you're making the right moves now.
Totally. But hey, there's always, you know, it's always a plan B for sure.
Something to fall back on. There's always something to fall back on.
That's like a plan D. Let's keep it
there.
We'll keep it at that. And finally, you talked about, you know, everything you do is dramatic. You have a one-take film called Last Call.
I do.
It's on Amazon Prime now. Tell us, give us the elevator pitch for this.
Sure. It's a one-take feature film, so it's 80 minutes long, no cuts, no hidden cuts either. And it's a split screen oneer that is basically a man who is struggling and decides to call a suicide hotline, misdials. My character picks up and tries to save his life. So what you're watching is two ends of a conversation happening. Yeah.
And how much pressure is that to do the one take?
A lot of pressure. Yeah, the sound technician said that he had to turn down my microphones for the first 15 minutes because all you could hear was my heartbeat.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, but it was fantastic because I haven't done theater in a long time, and being able to like bring it all back together was
That's what it
good.
essentially is, isn't it? Even
exactly.
though, yeah.
Yeah, we just made it with like 8. We made it with like 8 different, 8 people on our crew. It was such a tiny little independent film, but it's won a bunch of awards, and it's won me a bunch of awards. So I'll take it.
That's amazing, Sarah. Thank you so much for joining us. Like I said, big fans of the show. Very excited and just very excited for you. And again, thank you for joining us. Tell the folks out there where they can reach you online.
Sure. If you guys want to follow me on Instagram, it's Sarah Film Booth. And on Twitter, it's the same thing, SarahFilmbooth.
Fantastic. Sarah Booth from Three Pines. Go check it out on Amazon Prime. It's streaming. We're up to episode 4 right now, I believe, and 5 will be coming out on Friday. Well worth your time and investment. When we come back, more Rogue Wave Podcast. Welcome back to the Rogue Wave Podcast. Want to thank Sarah Booth from Three Pines, amazing guest, and it just the show itself. I'm not even putting up, any kind of like, airs here just because we were interviewing her. I'm genuinely enjoying the show. I genuinely like into this kind of like the whodunit. I haven't seen a good one in a while. Although I heard, was it Murders in the Building is supposed to be great too, right? Only Murders in the Building with Steve Martin.
I haven't seen those. They're on Hulu, I think.
Yeah, they're on Hulu. Yeah.
And I heard the first season was really great, and I heard the second season was as good as the first season.
Yes.
So those are the two things I heard. So I will watch them.
Yeah.
And I know that they were just recently on Saturday Night Live.
Yeah.
So, they've got buzz all over again. So
yeah,
I need to watch it. But I mean, I'm going to finish watching Three Pines first.
Oh, yeah. I told Sarah too, I'm only 2 episodes in. I know there's 4 total. So, so I got the first 2
every Friday, I think.
Is that what it is?
Thursday.
Okay. Yeah. Because I noticed that. I was like, man, all of a sudden it jumped up, pretty fast.
Which is good.
So.
I mean, as I said, like people are starting to figure out that the weekly format isn't really working. They can't drop everything at once, but they can't also give us everything once a week because they're just not going to hold people's attention.
I agree. Actually, I think that's a Steve Ovecki, when he was on the show, not this past time, but one of the earlier times, he had said like the best thing to do is drop it in blocks of like 3. So if they're dropping it in blocks of 2, I think that's actually pretty smart.
It feels like you get a movie every week instead of some one episode that doesn't actually finish itself. And because 2 episodes are basically one whole mystery, you get the entire thing,
Yeah.
And then because they're smart enough to have an overarching mystery over the entire season, you'll still keep coming back for other bits and pieces of the first mystery.
Yeah.
So that's a genius format.
That's what I thought. I mean, sometimes we've talked about Star Wars before and how the new trilogy, you felt like there just wasn't a lot of planning. I watched Three Pines and I'm like, man, I'm not saying that they're like, inventing like new formats or new strategies, but I was like, wow, this show is meticulously planned out. Like they figured out exactly what they're trying to do and how they're trying to execute it, and they are doing it in both excellently. So
I can't help but be intrigued though now from Sarah. I want to see that audition.
Yeah,
because that character is dialed up.
Yeah,
I know. She's pretty much got the most energy on set, because she's playing like the lovable rogue, kind of, or the
you're the underdog. You're rooting for her.
Yeah, but idiot meant in the in the innocent way, like the idiot savant kind of thing, where she's
Right.
like she's got talent that's hidden and then
Yep.
everybody underestimates her. Which I didn't want to say to her because I didn't know how she would take that. I couldn't think of. There's another descriptive for that, and I couldn't think of it. So I was like, all right.
So you just call her an idiot. That's just the easiest way to do it.
Yeah, I figured maybe
You're like an idiot savant.
Yeah, yeah. You never wait. You never know if people are gonna wait for that second word. You know, they're just gonna hear idiot. So I decided not to. I was discreet about that. But I mean, she's got the, you know, she's got the hidden treasures kind of motif going, where
Yeah.
she's got more worth than people suspect at eye glance. And so, but I just can't imagine. I can't imagine them having to tell her to dial all that back, because that's outrageous, you know.
So
She must have been like Jim Carrey.
I mean,
interview.
right? Like, I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. You know, she said dial it down. I wasn't sure
Yeah.
what she meant.
Yeah, exactly.
And then I didn't want to appear like an idiot, so you know.
Yes.
I was like,
Or
yes.
just a savant, right? You just want to be a
Yeah,
savant.
exactly. So before we get
no.
into the state of the DCEU, because there's just a whole bunch of stuff going out there. Did you end up rewatching Andor straight through yet?
I didn't, because I watched 3 Pines.
You watched 3? Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. It's okay.
You know what?
Okay.
I'm not in a super rush to go back to Andor. I keep thinking, yeah, this weekend I'll have some time. I'll just go back and watch it. And it's not like watching Book of Boba Fett, because Book of Boba Fett, there wasn't a lot to think about. It wasn't a very deep experience. Andor is kind of, it's very layered. It's got a lot of stuff going on. Like I said to you before, because I know we're not going to relitigate that. We have other things that we're going to talk about, but it's a very slick show, and it's very beautiful. It's kind of the way you'd want a Star Wars show to look.
Yeah.
Right. And pretty much you like the way the system usually works. You'll get an Obi-Wan. You'll hope for something like Andor, and you'll get Obi-Wan when you think about television shows. You'll get an Obi-Wan in the context of, like, kind of how cheap Obi-Wan looked, unfortunately. How hackneyed the special effects were, obviously, because they were putting all their money in Andor, which was just weird.
No, but I don't think they were. I think Andor, the way that they just utilized the budget.
That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. That they put all their money, because Andor looks expensive. Andor looked like it was.
I don't think it was any more.
Well, no, because a lot of it was a volume. But I mean, look, when you wait for that technology to perfect itself, the results are phenomenal. If you get the tech, just like CG, the early CG, like if you watch The Mummy, the Brendan Fraser mummies versus I don't know, anything from now, any MCU movie, you'll see, like, wow, they were overutilizing CGI way before they should have. They took the Jurassic Park thing and they ran with it. Oh, we could do anything now, right? Because CG's first iteration was The Abyss, Terminator, and Jurassic Park. These 3 like brilliant movies that still hold up today. But then all their progenitors, like, all the stuff that came after them, that's not progenitor, that's a descriptive for it. All their offspring basically look terrible. We have like 10 years worth of bad CGI in our childhood. So, just like the volume, I think
there was something nice about that, though, wasn't it? Like the 80s CGI, to me, there's something. I don't know what it was.
A lot of CGI in the 80s. I think 1991 was the Terminator.
Well,
so maybe 89, you had The Abyss. You had, I think, 89 or
okay, that's
88.
like legit CGI, but I'm talking about like Ghostbusters, like where the librarian, kind of comes at you, right?
No, that's all analog. That's all photography trickery. There would no CGI.
Okay. Special effects then. Okay. Let me rephrase what I'm trying to say. The special effects. There's something just again, I guess because we grew up in it. That's just kind of cute about 80s special effects, because you knew that it didn't look. I mean, like nowadays everything looks like super real. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
you don't know what's real and what's not real sometimes, right? Like a monster could legitimately like, wow, that's what a monster would really look like. Holy cow, that's scary as F, right? And back
80s
then,
special effects is AKA everything you can do now in Photoshop.
right,
Pretty much, you know.
right,
With you know, because everything is photo manipulation. Everything is light
right.
and dark and screens and, you know, this and that. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of charm to it, especially as we
Charm, that's the
utilize.
word I'm looking for. Quaintness.
Yeah,
It's almost like comfort food for me to watch like 80 CGI or sorry, 80 special effects and just know that when I was a kid, I just used to accept it. I accepted it as I know this isn't real, but this is as good as they could do it to make it look as real as possible at the time. Like I compromised in my own head watching 80s special effects. I don't know. I don't know how else to describe
did
it.
you I mean, okay, yeah, but did you ever think any of it was real? Like there's I mean, even in Ghostbusters, you didn't think it was real, but you were there, you were there in anticipation of what you might see, you
Right.
know? So you know, you knew the devil dogs or whatever were stop motion. You knew those were clay,
Right.
but you just didn't care, you know? You were just, I'm in it, you know, I'm in for the ride. I think Jurassic Park started everybody down this road of,
Well,
oh,
yeah.
everything
No,
looks real, you know?
right. And then Forrest
And
Gump had the video manipulation a year
yeah,
later.
that's when they were really starting to try to fool people.
Right.
Or they would, you know, they were really going for how the heck did they do that kind
Right.
of, you know, dynamic. And I mean, I think we lost something because of it, but you know, then we gained a lot anyway. So I mean, it's not worth litigating. But yeah, I was talking about CG. You're talking about special effects in general.
Right.
And look, special effects in the 80s are probably better special effects because it took more skill to get
Sure.
them. You had to be more skilled to do it, and also because of all the compromises that those
Right.
special effects cost. The filmmakers had to be better storytellers because they had to find a way to cheat for the special effects, as opposed to now where it's like, we could just make that in post, you know. We got everything we need. Just fix it in
Yeah.
post, you know, fix it after. So, you know, there is a lot missing. And I think movies are a lot less charming.
Yes.
I would agree with you on that.
Yeah. No,
Um,
I agree. I think we lose. I think, for all that we gain, we've definitely lost as well too.
but I mean,
All
look,
right.
if special effects are charm,
Yeah.
then Andor is probably the least charming thing I've ever seen because those special effects are flawless, you know, on that show.
Yeah, but I
So,
feel like a lot of it, yes, they are flawless, but it feels real, right? Like I feel like
well,
it's
that's what I mean by flawless. You know,
no,
that's
I know, but
I feel like all those locations are real places, and you
it,
know
it
that whole
feels yeah,
system is real.
it feels like 80s Star Wars where everything was tactile and felt tactile and felt
Hmm.
like, you can actually hold it. So I know what you're saying and you're right in the sense that they perfected it in Andor. But I'm saying that it reminds me so much of the charm of the 80s that I don't even care. I don't even mind.
Okay, fair enough.
All right, let's go to break. When we come back, we are going to discuss the state of the DCEU because there's a whole lot of stuff. There's no Wonder Woman. Is Superman going to be here or not? Black Adam all of a sudden not doing so well. James Gunn leading the charge. Yeah, it's going to be pretty outstanding when we come back. Welcome back to the Rogue Wave podcast. All right. For our final segment today, I thought it'd be kind of interesting. We're a few days off from Avatar, by the way, which,
Tomorrow.
yeah. No, it's tomorrow. I thought it
So,
was Friday. All right. I thought,
well,
no,
I mean, technically it started today.
oh, boy.
Technically it started already, but you know how it is. Like it's officially it's Friday. Yes.
Yeah. That's what I thought. It was officially Friday, but you're
Mhm.
right. It's, they're starting to get out there. So we'll talk a little bit about it next week. We're going to do our year-end review, though. We're going to do, everyone's going to pick a, so we have our guest is Kelly Kantrowitz, who is our frequent guest here on the show, but she's also a rogue writer. And we're going to pick, each of us are going to pick like our top moment of 2022 and our least favorite moment of 2022 in terms of movies. Like, what was our favorite movies? What was our least favorite? Things like that. We'll have a fun time next week. So we'll dive into Avatar a little bit too, but we'll save Avatar for after the break because I think people give people some time to watch it and things like that. So I thought today, though, because this is pre-Avatar and pre-end of the year for us, we should take a look at the state of the DCEU. DC's trajectory right here has been where Marvel is the poster child for stability, right? I mean, it's had one person in charge of it for the last 14 years now. No, 15, right? I mean, I think it was 2007.
Yeah, I don't even want to count because the longer the count, the older I am. So I don't want to count down. But yeah, it's been a while. It's been over a decade.
DC has gone from not having any presence to had the Christopher Nolan presence. They were in the 2000s the pinnacle of comic book movies, right? The Christopher Nolan Batman movies.
Didn't the first Guardians movie come out in 2014?
Yes.
So yeah, it's been they're going way back.
Oh yeah, that was like years. 08 is Incredible Hulk, right? I mean,
I think so. Yes.
But prior to that, you had. I mean, he's been in charge for at least a year.
Yes.
So meanwhile, you've had DC was the pinnacle of filmmaking in the 2000s, I think, for comic book movies, right? Like that's what comic book movies aspire to. Spider-Man also had a great run as well. The Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movies. But in terms of
Sam Raimi, yeah.
In terms of reputation, right? It was like, wow, Christopher Nolan. Everyone should just try to do what Christopher Nolan's doing. And Marvel's like, no, we're going to do this other thing.
Thank God.
And they ended up being like the poster child for stability. DC then goes to the Zack Snyder run, where Man of Steel comes out. And it's different. It's kind of in line tonally with the Christopher Nolan stuff, kind of dark and which is weird because of Superman.
Well, you're overlooking the Goyer years because David Goyer was a golden boy for quite a while, especially after the first Blade movie. And then suddenly he was involved with just about everything comic books.
Yes.
And then so he was originally the golden goose. And I think he was also involved with Batman Begins. But
yes, he was.
Peripherally.
Yeah, he was.
And then Nolan kind of took the crown from there and moved into okay.
Right.
I hear what you're saying.
Then Zack Snyder gets pulled in, and they're like, "You're going to be our Kevin Feige. You're gonna run everything, and you're going to make the movies too." So they're like, we're gonna save a lot of money here. We could hire a guy to run everything, and he could hire guys to make the movies. It's like, no, we're gonna merge that into one. Plus, Marvel spent the last 6 years trying to build up a universe. Let's just throw it all into one movie. This is like that was Superman. Batman vs Superman was essentially the like your cheap uncle's way of getting Christmas dinner, celebrating your birthday, New Year's, and throwing in Valentine's Day just for the sake of like, hey, we could celebrate all three holidays. They're around the same, they're around the same time. Your birthday falls in January. It's great. We'll celebrate it all at once. That's what they tried to do with Zack Snyder, right? That then led to again, the Batman versus Superman debacle, which then led to the Justice League, which then led to them actually coming out with good movies, amazingly enough. Then you had the Wonder Woman. You had, the Wonder Woman movie. You had Aquaman.
Wonder Woman, Aquaman, Shazam, the Joker. That was basically the big... I mean, Man of Steel did not do badly. It didn't do great. It wasn't one of the $1 billion club movies.
No, but it did enough to say, like, Zach could be the guy, right? But then, obviously, that all fell apart very fast. And then you had these other slates of movies. And then DC basically says, under Hamada...
Do you honestly think if there was no MCU, that those movies, that the DCEU movies would be considered failures, Because, I mean, you got the MCU who's making consistently, at one point in their tenure, they were making consistently $1 billion movies, right? Yeah. So now that's the gold standard, right? But, I mean, the DC movies, even Batman versus Superman, were not flops. They weren't financially, I mean, look, okay, they're honestly saying that Black Adam is a flop. They're honestly calling it that now, even though The Rock has, financial figures that supposedly prove that it's not a flop.
Yeah.
Fair enough. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the movie. I thought it was. I mean, we reviewed it, so I mean, everybody knows how we feel about it. But you know, yeah, I don't know if there was an MCU. I don't know if those movies would be considered failures.
Right.
They're making good comic book movie numbers, you know? It's just that you have this other company that were making astronomical comic book movie numbers. And so now everything is being judged on that gauge, on that scale. And I don't know if it's fair, you know? I also I think that Kevin Feige is an outlier. I think one guy who could come along and make an entire like build an entire empire and basically produce over 20 movies all by himself at consistent quality.
Yeah.
I think looking for your own Kevin Feige is kind of stupid.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's
looking for your own Einstein. Like, as soon as we find a guy as smart as Einstein, we'll be just as good as, as that company. You're not,
right.
I mean, people like that come once every generation for a reason. All you have to do is plan stuff. It seems like the hardest thing for people to do.
Well, that's what I said. I don't think like a show like Three Pines is reinventing the wheel, but you can tell they planned out how they were going to do it and they're executing it. It's like, that's just what you want. You want like just.
Well, format wise, definitely. I mean, the show in and of itself, what.
Just be
the
like,
show in and of itself is really well done mystery.
Just be competent. That's all we're asking.
Yeah,
bro, that's the only reason I'm bringing in Three Pines. I'm like, just be competent.
The genius is the rollout of the show. I think the show is brilliant in and of itself, and it sounds like I'm taking away from it, but I think the rollout of the show is where they really got innovative.
Yeah.
With like, okay, we're going to compromise on giving the people. Because everybody wants everything to run weekly because it trends longer, right? And you have a more of an opportunity to turn a show into a phenomenon, as opposed to dropping all at once. That's kind of Netflix's shtick, and it works for Netflix. But it works for Netflix because they have such a volume of shows on a regular basis.
Yes,
that they'll hold your interest no matter.
Which, by the way, I think that's coming to an end also, because I think at some point I was reading that they kind of. The model of spend. It's not an open checkbook there anymore.
Well, I mean, that's what HBO is now starting to cut shows because they don't want to, because of all the residuals that they have to pay out to their actors or whatever. Which is, again, that takes us into a question of ethics, because like, look, I pay for your streaming service so I can have those shows. If you're going to just start and because you're walking away from tangible media, because a lot of those shows just don't show up on DVD or Blu-ray or 4K. Right. So it's like, you're just going to decide what I can watch and what I can't watch. And that's unacceptable. I feel that that's unacceptable, but that's a whole different discussion. We're not going to have that discussion.
So we get to this period where they start making good movies. But then, or relatively good, let's say comparatively good. I mean, I enjoyed them. Look, I enjoyed it. I definitely did. But then you're
talking about like Aquaman and Wonder Woman or whatever, or which movies are you talking about?
Like Wonder Woman, Shazam was good, Aquaman was good. Like these are all comparable movies now to other comic book movies that are out there. I'm not going to sit there and say that the greatest thing I've ever seen, but I'm going to say, wow, what a vast improvement over what came before.
It's a waste of time to sit around waiting for the greatest thing you've ever seen. Anyway,
no, I know, but
it ain't never going to happen.
I just don't want to sit here and sound hyperbolic in my praise of those movies, which, by the way, I did highly enjoy. So I'm giving them the kudos I think they deserve, right? But then it gets DC Warner Brothers itself gets sold to Discovery, or the merger happens, whatever, and then David Zaslav takes over. And now everything is just, we don't know what's happening. We don't know what's going to go.
Fire sale. It feels like a fire sale. Like,
well, it feels like, I mean, as much as fans are complaining, like, oh, why would you do this and why would you do that? Like, from what I've read, there is significant debt that AT&T accumulated when they bought like Time Warner. Like basically AT&T, if you look at them as like the root of the problem, because I'm not going to necessarily, without full knowledge, I'm not gonna throw the current guy under the bus who's like reading the bottom lines, being like, oh crap, this whole studio is bankrupt and can't do anything. We need to start shedding some some money as humanly. We need to start getting some tax breaks like ASAP.
Yeah, that lends to that Hollywood format again, though, doesn't it? Because like if you make like the commercials, if you make oven mitts,
Yeah.
don't make salsa.
Right.
You stick with the oven mitts, right? But
Right.
they're like, hey, those guys over there are making salsa, and they made
Right.
$100 more than we did last year. We should make salsa,
Yeah.
And and when you make oven mitts, you're not equipped to make salsa. You don't make good salsa when you make oven mitts. So, Warner Brothers should have stuck with being Warner Brothers and stopped trying to be like Marvel Studios. And they probably wouldn't have overextended themselves so badly trying to get those bottom line results, those $1 billion result movies.
Right.
But,
so now everything is in limbo. There's reports from the Hollywood Reporter says Wonder Woman 3 is not moving forward, which obviously has been confirmed. Patty Jenkins came out today. There was a story from her saying, she tried to make it work, just didn't work out.
Either
Black
she
Adam
was fired or she quit. So depending on which story you want to listen to.
Correct. Well, yeah, it's her exact statement was when there started being backlash about Wonder Woman 3 not happening, the clickbait false story was that it was me that killed it or walked away, starting to spread. This is simply not true. I never walked away. I was open to considering anything asked of me. It was my understanding there was nothing I could do to move forward at this time. DC is obviously buried in changes they are having to make, so I understand these decisions are difficult right now. So essentially, it feels like it's almost like a cost-cutting move at this point.
Yeah, but it's a stupid. It seems stupid because
Yeah.
Wonder Woman and Aquaman were the closest they ever got to the DCEU in numbers.
Yes.
And those are the ones that are on the chopping block. That doesn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah. There was also a report that Black Adam has officially not. It's not going to get a green. Not officially, but it is reported that's not getting a green light either now.
Black Adam 2, you mean?
Yeah. So that's basically kind of stuck in. It's a one shot and one deal. Mainly because overseas, it doesn't seem that it's doing very well, and it's not going to end up, quote unquote, making money.
Mm-hmm.
It says box office Dwayne Johnson's Black Adam could lose up to $100 million. This was a report, I believe, from Variety. It stands to lose somewhere between 50 and 100 million following a disappointing run in the worldwide box office. So, it stinks because I thought it was actually pretty enjoyable. It was very good. So the only movies we have coming out are the next Aquaman movie and the next Flash movie. The Flash movie,
Flash 3 is not going forward. They're not going forward with that anymore. So,
well, they're not going forward with anything. And they hired James Gunn to kind of oversee everything. And according to the Hollywood Reporter, they are expected to present, him and his partner, Peter Safran, a multi-year plan for the DC universe directly to David Zaslav as soon as next week. So this story was actually written last week. So at some point this week, we are going to see a
they go before the man.
Yeah. What's your faith right now level that this is going to come away and we're going to be in a better spot a year from now than where we are now? What's your faith level in this?
It's tough because every prediction I've had about like that's a good idea or that's a bad idea has turned out like the opposite has happened, and it turned out wasn't quite as bad as I thought it was going to be, or definitely wasn't quite as good as I thought it would be. Like, oh, that's going to be amazing. So, like, I mean, a year ago you predict you're going to get Boba Fett, you're going to get Obi-Wan, and you're going to get Andor. Which one's going to be the best out of those?
Right.
Did you predict?
Right.
But I think, look, I still think that they're in trouble because I still think that they're chasing Disney.
Yeah.
And I don't think you can chase Disney. I just think you have to come up with something other than that. They've got a 20 movie head start on you. They're already setting the market for you.
Right.
So if you fall short of that market, no matter how much work you did, no matter how well the movie did, if it falls short on that dollar sign, you're a failure, And I wouldn't want to. I'm sure James Gunn can do it because he did Guardians of the Galaxy, which everybody said.
Well, that's the one thing, right?
Possible.
Yeah.
But I mean, he also did Suicide Squad.
Was amazing.
But Suicide Squad wasn't that great, and it wasn't that well received, even though it was a home movie. It was a day and date movie. So I mean, he's not Teflon either.
Sure.
And then you already said that the second Guardians movie wasn't as special to you as the first one. So, he doesn't, there is precedent for him not being able to put out consistent work. I don't necessarily agree with your assessment of the second movie,
Sure.
but I understand what you're saying. And I kind of agree. I mean, no one can do that indefinitely.
I mean, look, all three movies are, all the, all the movies we've mentioned, though, I think are all well done movies in the sense of they're not disasters. Nothing is a disaster because DC's had disasters.
I mean, look, I think B versus Superman was a disaster. The cut that I ended up seeing in the theater was a disaster. The extended cut, a much better movie. Not a great movie, but a much better movie. I think
not a disaster.
I think the B versus S was the problem was the script. The problem is like, okay, we're gonna throw in Doomsday, we're gonna throw in Lex Luthor, and we're gonna throw in Wonder Woman, we're gonna have Batman in it. But that was a kitchen sink movie.
Right.
That's kind of like Age of Ultron. It's up there with Age of Ultron in that kind of sense. I thoroughly like the Snyder cut for the Justice League. But I mean, that could have been the circumstance. We were in the middle of a pandemic and we were all stuck in the house, and there was a giant 4-hour superhero movie coming out that we hadn't technically seen before, so that could have colored the experience. I think Wonder Woman was wonderful. I think Aquaman was a surprise. I think
did you hear
I enjoyed
Wait,
Shazam.
did you hear he might be turning he might be playing Lobo now instead of Aquaman going forward?
And I think that's kind of what are you doing? I don't think that Aquaman is so intrinsically linked to the Snyderverse that you couldn't get away with separating him and doing more Aquaman movies. But if you don't want to, you don't want to. James Cameron's about to come along and make water movies like the next big thing for the next 5 years. So either that or no one's ever going to touch water again, depending on if that movie flops. So I think we should wait for what Mr. Cameron has to say about making movies in the water. Thankfully, Ryan Coogler got a chance to get there first.
Yeah.
So he's not going to look like a pale comparison to this giant extravaganza that we're about to see this weekend from James Cameron. But
I think what we're going
what's
to see.
Your favorite DCEU movie? Do you have a favorite one?
Probably Aquaman. I don't really say that with much. I would say the Nolan Batman's great, but we're not counting that as the DCEU, right?
Yeah, I guess so. Because the sad thing is, I think they're gonna get rid of James Patterson's Batman.
No, they're not supposed.
I haven't heard that there's a green light. Did you hear that they greenlit another one?
I heard literally today an article that came into my feed was Robert Pattinson's Batman eyed for James Gunn and Peter Safran's DC Universe. So according to Variety, they want to actually fold that and make that the Batman of the ongoing Batman, like
as
the
long
actual.
as they don't mess with the format too much. I think doing the Batman, it's a different take on it. Like it's not but I think it's a wonderful spin on a character that doesn't really alter the character too much. But they just do like, what if Batman was a detective in a really gritty murder mystery, Like let's just take the gloves off and say he's that we're going to put him in a genuine mystery. We're not going to put him in a movie where he's going to have to figure out how to live without his parents, or he's going to have to figure out how to beat Superman, or he's going to have to figure out how to get the Joker or whatever. It's just like, let's just put him in a film where he has to use his detective skills to figure out who's killing all these people. And I think that movie is wonderful, in my opinion. I thoroughly enjoyed The Batman. But I held out no real hope that they were going to keep it going because they always make very bad decisions over there.
Yeah.
But I think that would be my favorite of all of them so far. I did like Wonder Woman. I think that was a very delightfully surprising movie. But 84 was not.
Abysmal. That was trash. That was straight trash. All right, what do you guys think? Do you have faith in James Gunn? Is he going to pull out a Kevin Feige-like miracle? Are we going to see something?
I think it's unfair.
Are we going to see something completely new though? Maybe with like look, let's say like maybe there will be something completely new.
Good choice, Aaron.
Yeah, I Wonder Woman or Aquaman. I toss up, coin toss for me on that and those two. But let us know your thoughts. Comment in the comments field. Check us out. We'll be commenting all week long as well too. And next week, as I said, we will be back here. We're going to be joined by Kelly Kantrowitz, podcaster, rogue, writer as well, and we are going to list the best and worst according to us of 2022. We'll see you guys next week. Hi guys, Mike Dolce here from the Rogue Wave podcast. If you like this video, please feel free to like, share, subscribe, all that fun stuff. It really helps us out. Leave a comment, let us know what you'd like to see in future episodes, and tune in every Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern for a brand new episode of The Rogue.